Well, hey there guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, it's a reusable takeout beverage tray. Well, I got this idea a while back as I was sitting in a local coffee shop drive-through waiting for my morning coffee, and I was watching the vehicles ahead of me. And they were getting 2, 3, 4 coffees, maybe for a job site, maybe for their co-workers. It doesn't matter, but they would be asked, would you like a tray with that? And they would get the tray handed to them with the 4 drinks inside it. And then I would see other people that would take the tray from the day before and they'd toss it in the garbage and then get up to the window and they'd ask for another tray for that day's drinks. And I was thinking to myself, how many of these things are ending up in the trash? How many are ending up in the landfill? And then I got the idea of making one out of wood. One that could be collapsible, one that could be reusable, and one that could be a source to reduce the number of these beverage trays that are ending up in our landfills. So with that in mind, I came up with a design for this thing. I don't know if it's going to work. We're going to give it a try on today's show, and it all starts off with some scrap plywood. Well, I have 2 pieces of scrap plywood. One is 3/4 of an inch thick, one is a 1/2 inch thick, but they both measure 7 3/4 of an inch square. The first thing I want to do is a couple of layout lines. So I'm going to place a line 2 inches in from the edge, just like this, on each one of the 4 edges of each one of our squares of plywood. I have also placed a center mark on each one of these boards. So the first thing we're going to do is start with the top board, and that would be the 1/2 inch thick piece. So we can put the 3/4 inch piece aside, and the first thing we want to do with this 1/2 inch piece is in that center mark here, we are going to drill a 5/16 diameter through hole. And now at each one of our intersecting 2-inch lines, we are going to draw a 3-inch diameter circle. Now we are going to cut these circles out. I'm going to use the scroll saw. If you don't have a scroll saw, you could use a hole saw, you could use a fret saw, whatever you have that you could cut these 3-inch circles. Either way, get them marked and get the 3-inch diameter circles cut out of your 1/2 inch piece of plywood. And for now, that's all we're going to do with this top piece. So we can put this aside and turn our attention to our bottom piece, which is our 3/4 inch thick ply. And the first thing that we need to do is we need to drill some 1/2 inch deep holes that are 2 9/16 in diameter. Now, if you have a Forstner bit that is that size, that's great. You can use it. I do not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a routing template. So the very first thing you need to do is cut your holes. And your holes will be a little larger. And the way that you gauge how large you want those holes is by measuring from the edge of your router bushing that I have installed here in the router table to the edge of the cutting surface of your router bit. That dimension, in my case it's 1/8 of an inch, is how much you will increase your circle by. So you want to make your circles then that much larger to accommodate your bushing. And the very first thing that we're going to do is double side tape this to our 3/4 inch ply, and over at the router table we will route the outer perimeter of these 2 9/16 diameter circles. And now with that step done, I have a 3/4 inch straight bit in my trim router, and I have it set to a depth of 1/2 inch. I'm just going to get in here and clean out the center of each one of these holes. And at this point we can head over to the table saw. Well, I have my dado blade set up in the table saw. I have it set for a 1/2 inch width and I have it set to a 1/2 inch height. And what we need to do is right in the middle of the 3/4 inch ply on the same side that we just routed the holes, we need to place that 1/2 inch wide, 1/2 inch deep dado right down the middle. Then rotate the piece 90 degrees and do the same thing, so you end up with this crisscross dado configuration. And we will do the exact same thing with our 1/2 inch thick ply, the difference being it will only be a 1/4 inch deep dado. And for now, we can put these two pieces aside. So we have two other pieces to make, and what they are is 1/2 inch thick ply. They are 7 3/4 long and 2 1/4 inches wide. And the very first thing that I want to do is flip them up on end and right down through the very center, right through the middle of this, centered on the 7 3/4 side and centered on the 1/2 inch side, we are going to drill a 5/16 diameter hole right down through the middle of both of these pieces. And now right in the middle of the board, I have drawn a 1/2 inch by 1 1/8 high cutout. And we are going to cut that little cutout there in both of our 1/2 inch pieces. And we can put these aside now, and in our base piece, right on that center mark that you made, we're going to drill a 1/4 inch diameter hole. And although my original plans don't call for it, looking at these sharp corners, I think I'd like to take an 1 1/4 inch circle template, and at each one of these corners on our two 7 3/4 square plywood pieces, I think I'd like to put that 1 1/4 inch diameter circle at each corner just to soften that up and make it so it's not so pointy. So once I get these marked, I'll just take them over to the scroll saw and trim the corners off. Okay, and the last thing to do with these 4 pieces is we're going to give them all a good sanding. The only thing you need now to finish off this project is a 1/4 20 nut, a length of 1/4 20 rod, 3 1/4 inches long, a 1/4 inch washer, and a shop-made jig knob. Now, it doesn't have to be like this resin one that I made. It can be made of anything. I'll post a link actually to my jig knob tutorial down below, and you can make one of those if you want. Either way, get this sanded up and let me show you how this goes together. So I have taken our 3 1/4 inch long threaded rod and I have peened the end, placed it in a vise, made sure it was padded so it didn't damage my threads, and using a hammer I peened the end so that this nut here, this 1/4 20 nut, will jam on there and won't come off. Now, one of the things that I've added to this as well, because I thought it would be good to have it a little non-slip, is I found some of these little 1-inch rubber feet in my shop. So on the bottom, I have added 4 little rubber feet. So this is the way this goes. This 1/4 inch rod will go up through the middle, through the 1/4 inch hole that we drilled, and then one of our plywood pieces with our slot pointing up will slide over top of that. Our other plywood section with our slot facing down will fit right in here just like this, and then our top with our dados on the bottom will fit on top of here, and the whole thing will kind of click together. From there, a washer and our shop-made jig knob. Just tighten this down. And my friends, you have yourself an awesome reusable drink tray to take to your local coffee shop and keep the cardboard ones out of the landfill. And there you have it. A reusable takeout beverage tray. Guys, this is one of those projects that when you think about it, I'm surprised that the retailers and coffee shops haven't come up with something like this on their own. Possibly offering it for sale at a discount price to reduce the amount of waste that they throw in the landfill every day. I know that some coffee shops, when you go through, if you bring your own refillable mug, you actually get a discount on the coffee. At least that's the way it is here in Canada. So why wouldn't they go the extra step and get rid of these trays and keep them out of the landfill as well? I'm not quite sure the logic, but I'm glad that I thought of this idea because honestly, for starters, it was a lot of fun. I had to think a little bit because I only designed this last night. I finally got my button gear and sat down at the computer and designed the pattern and kind of had it in my mind of how it could all come together. And I had to make a few modifications along the way. My original concept was that it would be a threaded insert in the lower half of the base so that you wouldn't have that nut sticking out the bottom. But when I added those rubber feet to give it some stability, that kind of made it a moot point anyway because the feet stuck down further than what the nut did. Now, when you take this thing apart, if you have a jig knob that your bolt can go all the way down through, the actual plywood of this thing, it folds down or collapses down to be about 1 5/8 of an inch, plus your rubber feet. And of course that bolt is going to stick out of the top. But it can still very easily just slide under the seat of your vehicle and be out of the way, ready to quickly put together the next time you're going to do a coffee run or a coffee order. I think what the point is that it's not a matter of how much space it takes up in your vehicle. It's not a matter of using up scrap plywood because that's what this did. It's not a matter of using up some old rubber feet that you had lying around. It's a matter of keeping things out of our landfill and kind of having something that is reusable. So with that being said, feel free to paint this thing. You could paint it, you don't have to use plywood. You could use normal solid stock. You could use whatever you see fit to make this out of, and it would still be just an awesome project. So the next time you roll through your local coffee shop's drive-through and order 4 coffees for your crew, and the girl there or the guy says, "Would you like a tray with that?" You can say, "No thanks, I've got my own." Guys, I want to thank you so much for tuning in this week. A little bit of an environmental project today, but that's okay. It was still a lot of fun and I really enjoyed it. Guys, feel free to make this one your own. Modify it as you need to accommodate. Maybe the cups in your size at your local coffee shop are a little different than what they are here. Either way, it's a very easily modified project and I hope that you're going to enjoy it. Hit the website, guys, if you want the layout of this thing in PDF form for the top, the bottom, the sides, all the measurements. They're all there on the website, free for the taking. Just click on acutabovewoodworkings.com, click the free pattern section, and scroll down until you see the pattern you like. Click the download button, and it's yours, free for the taking. You'll also see photos there of what the project should look like when you're done. And down below that, there's, of course, you'll see this video, the tutorial of how to make the project that you just downloaded the plans for. Guys, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. You click that bell and then you won't miss the notifications of future episodes of the show. Guys, I want to thank you for tuning in this week. I hope you've enjoyed the content. I hope you're going to try this for yourself and keep those trays out of the landfill. And I honestly hope you're going to join me again next week when I bring you yet another woodworking video. And hopefully a black coffee. See you next week.